becoming an authority. At that time, I started December of 18. The financial situation for the community mental health was not good. They had been losing money for a number of years. The risk reserves were almost gone. So the request was becoming an authority has an impact. It removes risk from the Macomb County as a whole. The authority becomes a separate entity that would then in turn contract directly with the state of Michigan. So the task force had 2 members of the Community Mental Health Board, 2 consumers and family members, 2 provider representatives, 2 union representatives, 2 staff, which were the union reps, including, and then myself at the administration side. We had representation of the Office of the County Executive, and we had representation from the Board of Commissioners as well. So the task force met from June through September, and they did vote and make a formal decision to recommend that to the Board of Commissioners that they move ahead with forming a mental health authority. The Macomb County Community Mental Health Board passed that resolution supporting that in September of 20. This is what it takes to become a mental health authority, and it's up to the Board of Commissioners. So this is right from the Community Mental Health Code. First step is the state of Michigan has to certify the entity, which they've done in all those other cases. You have to pass an enabling resolution adopted by the Board of Commissioners. That there is some work that has to go into the enabling resolution because that spells out the details of the separation. You also have to have at least 3 public hearings according to the Open Meetings Act. And then the resolution is considered adopted if it is approved by a majority of the commissioners elected and serving in the county, creating the authority. And the resolution is then filed at the Secretary of State and with the county clerk, and voila, you have a mental health authority. The enabling resolution, not going to go through all this detail, but it does, according to the Mental Health Code, have very specific criteria that it has to include at a minimum. The task force did look at enabling resolutions from other authorities, so we do have examples to work from. The task force, I did include as an attachment as well the final report, which details a lot of the feedback. But we had Roz present to us initially. She's an attorney who has helped many regions and counties become authorities in Michigan. Mike McCartan was the former CEO of St. Clair County when they transitioned to become an authority and form Region 10, which is the PIHP to our north. Kevin Evans here locally, because Martha T. Berry operates under a health authority status. Richard Carpenter, who is a principal with Raymond, and he's currently now our interim CFO. He does a lot of work around the state of Michigan and was familiar with this transition as well. And Bill Ward, who was the former chief of staff for Detroit Wayne when they became a mental health authority. Bill also worked at the airport authority in Wayne County. And he's currently the executive director of a CMHSP on the western side of the state. Pretty much right out of the gate, the task force determined that there would be no negative impact on providers or the people served. It's really a behind the scenes change, and it's pretty much invisible to the folks in the community and to the providers we contract with. The experience of authorities around the state show improvement in service delivery to people and to contracted providers, given the increased flexibility and its ability to adapt quickly to changes, and boy, are there frequent changes in our system. As part of the separation, all of the services that the county currently provides to the CMH would need to be transitioned. The mental health code says that pretty much every staff person has to remain unharmed for that first year. So you have a good year of a transition in order to start the separation. Of course, accounts payable, the financial software, human resources, payroll, and legal services being the big areas that we benefit from the county services currently. The CMH staff would be impacted in different ways. So this was the focus of the task force. We did work with the county finance. We did get into actuarial studies of pension, retiree health benefits, etc. Then after reviewing all of that information, the task force again did vote, but the activities were suspended in September of 20. New updates since then. It's just, we've come to realize that you really don't want to transition to an authority when you don't have any money. Back in 2018, our risk reserve was under $200,000. We're estimating it would cost $3 to $5 million to transition to become an authority. And now we have a fully funded reserve, and we do have the funds available to cover that. If that was the decision of the commissioners. Yeah, so if we would have tried it in 2018, our $200,000 would not have gone very far, and the county would have had to contribute the funds for to allow that separation. The Medicaid rules do allow the CMH to fund liabilities associated with becoming an authority, so we can use our Medicaid funds to help in that transition. Due to new mandates from the state, this is a really new update. We're currently in the process of looking for our own financial and payroll software vendors. There's a mandate from the state that from October 1st, we have to change the way we report. So we are already moving to have our own financial general ledger software package and our own payroll. And we're working with the county to on the details around those transitions. And then, as Phil is well aware, and my board, there's currently activity at the state to redesign the entire system. There's a gearing towards integration proposal by Senator Shirkey, and another one from Representative Whiteford. Both call for the elimination of the PIHP system, which is, as I said earlier, that's our Medicaid contract and the largest part of our funding. There's currently bills in the House that would change the community mental health system. So that's a whole lot of detail in a very short period of time. And Phil's laughing. And that's the world that I live in. And I apologize anytime I have to try to bring anybody into my world. So happy to answer questions.
Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I have a series of questions, so I'm hoping for you to be a bit concise so that the other commissioners don't get mad at me. Okay, so the first one is we don't vote on contracts for community mental health. You spoke to the county executive executing contracts, but the CMH board actually votes on contracts, don't they?
But they're not they're not enforceable until they're signed by the county executive.
Okay. What has been the feedback from the county exec's office relative to this?
Have not spoken to them recently on this. This is just an update from the past. They were at the table with us during all of the task force meetings.
Okay. With respect to the section on real property, I know that it indicates that you would actually take over real property. I don't know what all property is involved, but like Martha T. Berry's an authority, but they don't own the building, do they? I don't know if there's anybody on here that, I thought that we own the building in that situation. In this situation, would we be turning property over to you? Or I know that you rent some property from other entities, or would there be a purchase agreement? Has there been any discussion relative to that?
We did not get into the specifics of that, but we could continue to rent. You do not have to own property, but one of the big advantages when you go through all of the detail is that as a mental health authority, we could own property ourselves. We currently cannot, so we rent right now.
Okay. Now for the tougher questions. Do you know how many employees right now are grandfathered into the defined benefit plan?
Not off the top of my head. We did. The Office of the County Executive worked with an actuarial firm, and they were able to identify these. They were able to break out people who had ever worked for the community mental health out of those funds. They had not been separated previously at any point.
So if you have defined benefit people, they're protected for a year. Say you have somebody that's been there for 25 years and they're 5 years out and they'll get it. Are they in danger in a year of losing all of that, as opposed to a 401k where that individual gets to keep the money even if there's a separation?
Yeah, we started down that path into great detail, to the point where I was meeting with individual staff about their situations. And pretty much what it comes down to is it's an individual staff impact. So I can't answer your question across the board. Some people might be impacted. Others might be fine.
Well, I just wouldn't want somebody to lose 15 years of service and 15 years towards a pension, and they don't have 15 years of 401k. Listen, we went through that. My husband and I went through that. So I understand starting over, and some people don't have enough time left in life to start over. So I do have a concern about that. Now, of the defined contribution employees, at the point of separation, do those that have less than 5 years lose their county match because they didn't make it to the 5 years?
Again, there was no set answer to that one. We were looking at, the Office of the County Executive was talking to the 401 vendor to see if, even after we became an authority, if that's what happened, about those staff remaining in the county's 401. That
Okay.
happened in other areas that have transitioned to an authority, but there was no guarantee on that, but it was a definite possibility.
Okay, at least those that have 5 years would be able to keep their match and could seamlessly move without losing a significant amount of their pension. And I understand getting out from underneath things. I just really worry about those defined benefit people. If there was some way to, well, I don't know how there is, because it wouldn't be your pension system. I don't know how you fix that, but it's a concern. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
And we shared that concern. The impact on staff was the largest concern in this whole process.
Thank you. Commissioner Matusik, please.
Thank you, Chair. I share the same concerns. How many staff are we talking about that will be moved to the new authority?
We have about 200 to 250 county employees.
And all of those people would move to the new authority?
They would have, yes, the option at that time.
Okay. I am very concerned about the folks that are in the defined benefit program. That's a serious concern. I'm also really concerned about the match. My other question was, it says that you have to take the collective bargaining agreements. What are the current expiration dates on the collective bargaining agreements?
I don't know. We don't have to take those. They have to remain in place for the first year. But we were talking to the subject matter experts that came in, and most of them had extended the current bargaining agreement for another 2 to 3 years to get that transition all in place, and then they were renegotiated. But again, there was no, guarantee final outcome for the union contract.
I understand there's no guarantee. I'm telling you that is a huge concern for me, that the employees, if they are under a collective bargaining agreement, that be honored, and that all effort be made to negotiate that for the longer period than 1 year. This is a transition that's going to take some serious effort.
No, there was every intent to continue the contract for the forever into the future. This was not they would just have to renegotiate. It was my understanding as a new chapter underneath the mental health authority, should it be formed. But yeah, we plan.
And you as an authority are open to doing this?
It would be up to the board of the authority at that time. But yeah, there was no opposition to that, to continuing it.
All right, those are my main concerns, that the folks in the defined benefit program not be harmed, and the folks in the newer version of retirement not lose their match dollars. Those are really important to me in terms of voting in favor of this kind of authority. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hall, please.
Thank you, Chair. David, you or Phil, you haven't had any discussion on a transitional move as it would apply to defined contribution programs or the retirement system, because I sit on the board and we've not discussed anything about this at all. Is that correct?
The Office of the County Executive was talking to the retirement in order to get the actuarial numbers that we were able to review near the end there. But that's
my question applies to maintaining and the transfer of benefits with the defined contribution program. There hasn't been any discussion on that to date. Is that correct?
It was my understanding that the question had been asked about whether or not, if we became an authority, if they would be able to stay in the continue to stay in the county plan.
So I guess I would have to ask the Office of Executive who they asked that question of, because our retirement board attorney has not mentioned anything to date. Matter of fact, we had a meeting this morning and there was nothing mentioned to date on anything like that, because I agree we cannot put the retirement of employees that have dedicated their service at risk here if it becomes an authority. So the first question I want to ask you and Phil, are you both recommending to become an authority and want that to happen? Is that what I'm hearing? Either one of you or both. Chairman Phil, jump in.
I'll jump in, Dave. I'm a yes. Sitting through the whole process and being part of the entire task force for almost a year and a half, I'm a yes, and I am definitely in the majority opinion of that task force. There were only 2 folks that voted against it of that entire group, and you saw the list of the group. There were parents in there, there were people that we serve in there, there were providers, etc. So I'm a yes.
Thank
Short
you.
answer.
David, you have a short answer?
I went in with a very open mind and tried to remain neutral and listened to the experts we had come in. And at the end of it, yes, I was. I do see it as an improvement for the people of Macomb County, for Macomb County as a whole, for the types of services we're able to provide. It streamlines a number of areas that would directly impact services.
Who's leading the charge? And the purpose of this presentation, I guess, is to educate us, or us that haven't seen this before. Is there another process step? I'm a process and procedure guy. What would you be looking for next? What's next?
I was asked to update the board of commissioners on the authority task force and what we had done previously. I don't have a vote, but I'm happy to help facilitate further discussions. Whatever's asked of me.
Okay, I guess then I'll go to Chairman Kraft.
Well, right now we're having Chair Brown and I are having a discussion over the next steps for this process. There's two thoughts on this, and I think Dave and I are in agreement on what steps we can take to move forward, because it's in the state mental health code that specifically says the Board of Commissioners can vote on the enabling resolution and go from there. But there's also an asterisk by that for others, because we are a charter county, so there's the potential that we may be different in that sense, and that there may be another path that we have to take. I don't agree with that, because to me, the state mental health code is rather clear, but you get two attorneys in the room, you're going to get two different opinions. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, and that's kind of why it was suspended back in September.
It's suspended in September for that reason, and the fact there were no fundings. Is that right?
You broke up there at the end. I'm sorry.
There were that issue and the fact there was no funds. You guys, I think the number was 200,000. Was that a reason that it was suspended?
No, I'm sorry. In 2018, we ended fiscal year 2018 with less than $200,000. In 2019, we added 10.4 million to the risk reserve. In 2020, we became fully funded in our risk reserve and savings, and we're projected to end this year in the same fashion. So no, it was not a financial decision.
Great.
Last September.
Thank you. That's all I have, Chair. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brown, please.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dave, for coming and doing the presentation, and the members of the board. The question was asked earlier about where does the executive's office stand. I had spoken to the executive's office a couple of times since becoming chair on the subject, and they support creating the authority. So I'll put that out there. It's up to the reason this presentation for the board is to see whether we want to proceed forward. One of the things I heard in the presentation was that they need to create an enabling resolution, and what that enabling resolution looks like and contains, I'm still not fully sure. But if they could draft one for the board to look at, we could, evaluate that and proceed. But we have to first, before we go down this road, is determine whether this board of commissioners wants to move forward with creating an authority. So that's why the presentation's here. From everything I've read and what I've heard, it seems to be the right move. However, we've got constituents, our employees, that we have to look after. And I would like to know first exactly how many employees are in the defined benefit plan. And there's a way to buy them out, but just like they do in other plans. So no one is a plan doesn't have to be stopped, or a change doesn't have to be stopped because someone's in a defined benefit plan. They could certainly be purchased out or bought out. I think there are ways around providing to make sure that they're not held harm. I don't want to harm anybody. I would be the last thing I would want to do is have somebody lose 15 years of work and lifetime of work and have it go down the drain, as we've seen in the auto industries as examples. So I'm interested in that question and figuring that out. There is a will, there's a way to have this happen, and I think that can be addressed. But we need to know that first. And so I will talk with the executive to see what discussions they've had with the actuary and to see what could be done to answer these questions regarding the employees in the defined benefit plan. So I think it's the right move based on the study, not my work, but the work that the people involved with the process. They spent 1.5 years looking at it in community mental health, and they know their business better than I do. But from what I perceive, it's someone who's a big advocate of community mental health. It's someone that's got personal investment in this from my own personal experience, plus with the many years I've had involved with county government, having many youth group homes in my district, more than any place in the entire county up in my district. I interact with them all the time on a variety of issues, and not having that safety net for those people to provide the services that community mental health pays and provides for is essential. So I don't want to see any degradation to the service. I want to make sure that at a minimum it remains the same and ultimately increase. So that's where I'm coming from as we go forward. And I think based on what they've done in the past, an authority is the right way to go. However, we've got some questions to take care of, and those housekeeping questions can be answered. I think we can go forward. So that's all for right now, Mr. Chairman. Madam Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft, did you want to speak some more?
Sure, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just two things real quick. A couple of the big things for me when sitting through the task force was the fact that the county would, quote unquote, be off the hook if we move to an authority. I mean, you saw how big our budget is, and we were dangerously close to having to ask the Board of Commissioners to help us out. That number could have been $200,000. That could have been $2 million. It could have been even worse. And Chair Brown and Commissioner Kleinfeld, I think, were around when the county hit hard times and we're making cuts and things like that, and it was extremely difficult. I had to be a board member when the CMH board was making cuts. Our public comment would last for hours because we had to cut services because we didn't have the budget to provide what we needed to. So that's the other aspect that was the most important to me is the people we serve. That's why I got on that board to begin with. Those are the most important people to me in this entire process. And the fact that they would go unharmed and possibly get better services sold me immediately. We can cross the T's and dot the I's with our employees, and they need to be taken care of as well. But the people we serve is the reason that the Community Mental Health Board is there, why we exist, to provide those services. And so if we can maintain what we're doing or do better and do it at a faster rate with the rate that things are changing at the state and coming down to us and how we have to react quickly, I'm fully on board with this, and whatever we have to do to get it going, I'm on board. So thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Matusek?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That is exactly the point I want to speak to, what Phil just mentioned. These are critical services to the people that live in this county. And while we never wanted to be in a situation where the county had to backfill missing funds, you mentioned the changes that people are talking about in Lansing, some of which would directly affect the reimbursements you get and the amount of money you get from Medicare. If we spin you off into a separate authority, you don't have the money, you don't provide the services. That's of concern to me because there are some proposals out there that would seriously reduce the amount of reimbursement that Medicaid pays for. And I think that's a concern I have in terms of these are really valuable services. And while I never want community mental health to be in a position to come to the board to ask for money, depending on how some of these changes are if they happen, how they're constructed, we could be in a position where you, having to stand on your own 2 feet, have to seriously cut services. And so that is a concern of mine. What's coming out of Lansing is not very clear at this point. There are a number of proposals. None of them seem really good to me in terms of reimbursing of services. So that's a concern I have as we move forward. I want to make sure that our residents in this county get the best mental health services they can get, and that they can access them when they need them, as opposed to having to wait 3 months for an appointment. And I want to figure out the best way to do that. And the authority may be a great way to do it, but there are some risks involved in my mind. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hall, did you hit your button twice, or do you want to speak again?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I just got a text from our pension board attorney. He says an actuarial study is done before we pension board see the study to make any decisions. So somewhere in the next step, I'm assuming that's being taken care of. So that's why the pension board hasn't reacted to this at all. So that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Kleinfeld, please.
I actually pressed to speak before Julie spoke, but I'm glad after she spoke that I want to. Her concern is actually it's an incentive for me. There was a time a few years back, I don't know how many millions, but they couldn't tell us if they were in the black or 15 million in the hole, or maybe even more. And there was a couple years there where we thought, wow, this could bankrupt the county. And so it does no good to anybody if it's so catastrophic that the whole county goes bankrupt and we end up doing like Detroit and giving pennies on the dollar on pensions for the entire group. So keeping it within the county doesn't necessarily mean we have the funds to keep providing those services. If Lansing cuts, it is my position that we cannot use county funds to provide those services because we will eventually go broke. And you know, they already shifted, which got us partially into this. They shifted a large amount of the money from the Metro Detroit area out to the rural areas. And so, I mean, I just don't know how much more they can do to us without crippling us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Nobody else is on the queue unless you're not getting through. Yes, Dave, please.
Just to respond to some of those comments, it's a really complicated system, so I understand that. The current system redesign legislation at the state level is specific to the Medicaid contract for the PIHP. And it would eliminate that under the Shirkey plan and give all the Medicaid dollars to the Medicaid health plans. We would continue in Macomb County to be a CMH, and we are then responsible for those safety net services. We have to provide crisis services to anybody who presents in crisis, even if they don't have Medicaid. We would then have to contract with the Medicaid health plans for all the services we provide to try to get reimbursed from them instead of getting reimbursed from the state directly like we do now. So it's not that they're changing the rates or anything else. They're looking at shifting how the Medicaid dollars would come down to Macomb County. We could continue to try to provide those services, and we would still be a community mental health service program for those general fund. If we were not an authority, we would be at risk for those general fund as a department of Macomb County. If you recall earlier in the presentation, there's 46 CMHSPs and 41 of them are authorities. So we could be a mental health authority only under the CMHSP contract with the state of Michigan as well. Our revenue would be a lot lower, is all. And we would still be responsible for meeting the needs of the people in Macomb County. So it's complicated and it's a lot of acronyms, and I do apologize for that. But it's not a rate cutting, it's a system redesign where they're changing the way Medicaid comes down to the counties and to the current 10 PIHPs.
Well, there's a lot of thought here. There's a lot of situations, and I'm glad we have this array of board members to come at it from so many different angles. That's why I love this board, because people think of so many different things, and your mind, you must be a genius to be able to compute all this stuff. So does anyone have anything else they want, or I think we're good to go, and we look forward to speaking to you about this again. And
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes.
Thank you. Going forward, I think I'd like to see Dave bring back a draft of an enabling resolution that the board could look at and review and see what that contains. Similarly, at the same time, I would like the information that's been requested by our board members about the number of employees involved in the defined benefit plan, and what the solution is, potential solution could be for those employees in the transition. So, and we'll proceed along those lines. And when we get both those pieces of information together, the 3 pieces, we'll come back to this board and present it and see what the board wants to do, if they want to go forward or some other course of action.
Happy to do that.
Right.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much, David. And thank you, everyone.
So we have a receive and file, Chair, to vote on.
Yes, receive and file to full board. Receive and file to full board. We're done with questions. Vote now. He has the vote up. I already voted.
Right. It's just a receive and file. It's not it doesn't go to full board.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Receive and file.
That motion passes 12-0.
Thank you. We are now going to recommendations. Do I have a motion for forward to full board?
Chair, I'll make the motion for 7A, budget amendment, Macomb Community Action, Children and Family Services Division, Head Start, in the amount of $1,222,823.
Support from Kraft.
Thank you. Ernest?
I'm here.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I don't have anything as intriguing or compelling as Dave had to talk with you about. These are 3 standard agreements you have before you related to, again, COVID, the CARES funding, and the American Rescue Act. This one for $1.2 million for Head Start. Again, what you've seen across the pandemic and MCA is these aren't funds we're necessarily competing for. These are funds that come as part of a formula for our existing services. And so Head Start gave an allocation to existing Head Start grantees to utilize and adapting to the context of Head Start. And for these funds, we're looking to make sure that we're being flexible and accommodating in how we structure these classrooms. Our goal for a lot of this funding is to increase our outdoor areas in our classroom sites and enhance our early Head Start funding to create more outdoor play areas. We think one of the things that we need to do, and we learned through COVID, is be prepared to have less crowding in indoor spaces. So we're looking to spend a lot of this funding on enhanced play equipment, outdoor spaces, some equipment for our new warehouse, which you'll see on the next agenda item, as well as supports for staff to allow them to be more flexible and provide more floating staff to fill in when we do have staff mandated to be off due to potential COVID exposures.
Thank you. Are there any questions, staff? Oh, staff. Let me go here. Commissioner Music?
Thank you. All of a sudden, my lawn service showed up at the condo, so if there's background noise, I apologize. My windows are open. And I would go shut them, but I'm in the middle of asking questions here. That other sound is not me.
No, Ernest, if you would mute while she's asking the question, the echo will go away.
Great. I have a number of questions. One, this is, you described the funding as the Head Start American Rescue Act funding. So I'm assuming that this is funding in the Rescue Act that is specifically targeted for Head Start. Is that?
Yes, that is correct. This is not from the county's portion. This is through the Office of Head Start funding down to its grantees.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question was, you talked about staff supports. And in the past, we've talked about that your census of children has gone down during the pandemic. Are you starting to see an increase, students coming back? And then if we're talking about supporting staff, are we hiring back or hiring additional staff to work in the Head Start program as we sort of ramp things up?
Yeah, there are a couple points to that question. One of which is that for our full day Head Start classrooms, we have a school year, and that school year is ending in a couple weeks. So we do have a gap in the summer period, except for our early Head Start sites with our child care partners, which also do provide continuous service. For our Head Start staff, again, we did not see a decrease in enrollment. What we saw was inconsistency in in-person attendance. Oftentimes, parents, for whatever reason, did not want their child attending in person. That led us to a lot of remote instruction, which obviously is not the ideal. It is not part of the Head Start Gold Standard. And while Head Start had allowed that during the pandemic, they have been clear that remote instruction is not up to the fidelity of the Head Start model. And so we are looking for that reason to have some floating staff be able to fill in. We already have a sub pool for sub teacher aides or sub teachers, but due to the county's precautions and making sure we limit the spread of COVID, oftentimes if somebody had a cold, we know that a cold symptoms were indistinguishable from COVID symptoms. And so you could have a teacher who was mandated to be off for 10 days. And that was really leading to some inconsistency with our capacity. And that's what we're looking to address here is we have our fingers crossed that we'll have less of a pandemic here when school starts in the fall. And that's what we're preparing for, is to make sure we have the capacity and some enhanced supports. One of the things we're looking to purchase with this grant are curriculum kits that provide all of our 1,022 children with enhanced kits so that they can do more in-home family instruction and have the enhanced ability to participate even if there is interim remote classroom instruction required.
Thank you. Two last questions. We're at the stage of the pandemic when we're really pushing vaccines in a way that take the vaccines to people as opposed to them coming. I'm hoping that Head Start is working closely with the health department in terms of providing vaccines to parents in an easy, accessible, non-threatening way.
Yes, absolutely. One of the great points of leverage of Macomb Community Action is our communication with our communities. We have been promoting the Verculen site right here all that we can. We promote our testing sites, and we absolutely utilize our Head Start program to make families aware of all of the opportunities for them to get vaccinated safely and conveniently. And it's a good reminder. We'll make sure that while we are in the interim summer period, we keep sending out those notices to parents so that they have the greatest chance to get one if they would like one.
Great. That's good news. That's how we're going to stop this panic, in my opinion. And my last question is perhaps not directly related, but it is related. This money that we're rearranging today, accepting today, is part of the American Rescue Act funding, but it's clearly, as you said, designated specifically for Head Start. I am curious about how much your department in general has had input into discussing how we're going to use the rest of this Rescue Act funding. There's obviously a lot of intersectionality with your larger department and this rescue money. And I am very hopeful that you've been involved in thinking about big ideas.
Absolutely. The county is very lucky to have the Office of the County Executive. I can tell you that both JP and Vicki are big champions and supporters of our services for vulnerable residents. And they absolutely are looking to make sure that our most vulnerable residents are supported by the American Rescue Plan, and have asked us what additional supports we could need, what funding gaps exist, what eligibility gaps exist, and also new and innovative ways that we can not just fund services immediately, but create some long-term plans for change. And we're very glad that we have that leadership at the county executive.
That makes me happy to hear. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I believe at this point, we will vote on this. Thank you.
That motion passes 12-0.
Can we forward, it's listed as F, I believe it's, no, here it's B. It must be my eyesight. B and C, can we do those together to full board or not?
I'll make the motion to refer B and C to full board.
Thank you. Is there
I'll support
Thank you.
Romano.
All right, Ernest, can you take care of that for us?
Absolutely. So this first item, F or B, however you read it, I read it as F2, so maybe I need glasses, is for warehouse space for our Head Start program. Believe it or not, we have to look for more space. We were sure that the county had some, or we were sure that we'd find some more. And I learned throughout the last year that it is very hard to find smaller warehouse spaces. There is an abundance of 20,000 square foot warehouses that want a lot of money. It's much harder to find smaller warehouse space that's convenient. This warehouse space right here you're looking at is actually just one street over from the Vic Wertz building. So it's right near the existing county storage. And during the pandemic, as we expanded our food operations, we had less and less space in our existing warehouse to utilize for non-food storage. And so this will provide some additional space exclusively carved out for Head Start. We're doing a lot more distribution of supplies to families. We don't just need storage, we need a space to build those loads. And we're going to be utilizing this warehouse space to accommodate that need from our Head Start team. We hope it's not, forever, but it was a need and demand. If you've been to the Vic Wertz building and you've seen those moving pods in the parking lot, that was our short-term solution to not being able to find a warehouse. We have been on the hunt, and we were very pleased to find this space. We think it is at a good and reasonable fair market rate. It's convenient as it's right next to the Vic Wertz building. And like I said, we've been looking and operating out of these pods at the Verkulen building for almost a year now.
Thank you. Commissioner Romano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a few questions here, if I may. So we know that the zoning on this particular thing is for storage. Is that correct? I mean, do we have the zoning now is for storage? I know this is an industrial complex. Do we need to go before anybody to get approval for this storage facility?
It is set up for both storage and office space. They have a kitchenette and a bathroom and an office as well as storage space. The previous tenants used it as storage and office space, and they modified the building, cleaning up some of the previous tenant structures in preparation for our lease. And I do believe it all of the licensing, both for the office space and the warehouse storage.
So do we need a certificate of occupancy in order to get in there?
I do not believe so, but I will follow up. I think we have gotten the go-ahead from their team that we can start to occupy the building, but I will check on that. Thank you.
Okay. The rental amounts that we're paying now, this is not a triple net, is it? It's a flat rate. It's a flat rate we're paying. We're not paying any additional rental for tax prorations on that part of the building, maintenance on the exterior, that part of the building. That's not part of it. It's just a flat rent, other than the fact that we have rental increases every year. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a flat rate per square foot.
Per square foot. So I guess when you said you had a hard time finding, and I'm not questioning what you did, but you know, with the pandemic coming on and the COVID coming on, a lot of this office space, a lot of this storage area became available. And I know it's the smaller the area that you're looking for storage, the harder it is to get, but they're out there. And I'm just wondering why we didn't have any bids on it. You went strictly to that one place and without any other bids.
Absolutely, Commissioner. I appreciate the question. I can tell you that we did reach out to the Office of Planning and Economic Development, who maintains a large list of available space. We worked with the Office of Planning and Economic Development. We reached out to all of the school districts. We reached out to a lot of the broker agents that the county uses. And we had a couple restrictions in finding some of that space. We couldn't use abandoned office space. We need a truck loading dock. We need something to accommodate pallets. We need a configuration that allows our forklift to store inventory in certain ways and can accommodate racking. So those were three of the requirements that made it harder to find space. I can tell you the Office of Planning and Economic Development was excellent at giving us leads and helping us identify space. And space after space just did not have the right configuration or the right access or the right accommodations. And we looked everywhere, and this was one of the first spaces we found that had all of the requirements that we would need.
And it looks ideal. I mean, location, it would look ideal for us. So I could see your situation, why you would jump at it. So the other question I have is, how about the liability insurance? We didn't include that. We didn't include the glass insurance that the landlord is asking for. Have you factored that into the price for the yearly fee or the yearly rent? Because they are asking for liability insurance. They're also asking for glass insurance liability. So have you factored that in? How much that's going to cost us?
I don't know if Gary wants to jump in on this one, but
go ahead. Whoever wants to jump in.
In general, the county is self-insured, and I do believe we've talked with the county about the coverage limits that we already have for our existing warehouse space and operations, and this would fall under that existing scope for liability coverage for our facilities. This would be included in that.
Well, there's specific amounts that the landlord's asking for. I just want to make sure that we're covered as the county is, and it's not like, I understand what you're saying that the county covers its own, but there's specific amounts. Anyway, look into it, Gary, because there's specific amounts on the lease that the landlord's looking for. I just want to make sure that we're covered for that. Okay, the other question I have is utilities, gas, water, heat, etc. Do we have any idea what that's going to run us, especially the heat in the wintertime? Water is irrelevant. We're not going to use it that much. I don't think we'll be using any gas more than the heat is what I'm concerned about. Do we know how much, any idea what that's going to cost?
you want to jump in there
Anybody
on
have contact?
either of those items, Gary?
Commissioner Romano, and board, this is Gary Keller. I'm the fiscal services manager here at Macomb Community.
Yes,
Action.
Gary,
Um,
go ahead.
As far as the insurance item, we reached out to the county risk manager, John Anderson. He provided the insurance certificate. There was no conversation of cost, as Ernest mentioned. We're self-insured. He just added the extra item onto our current existing policy.
Okay,
As far as the cost of utilities, we put utilities based on relative current usage in our buildings into the budget that you just approved in the previous line item under the American Rescue Act. We put in the ongoing running of the warehouse cost into that budget that you guys just had approved.
okay, fine, I got it. The other thing, last two I have is outside snow removal, maintenance. Whose liability is that?
That is on the landlord.
It's on the landlord. Snow removal's on the landlord.
Yeah, snow removal and groundskeeping. To get rid of that, they just did their landscaping all with rocks. So they have an easy job on that side.
Good. You know, gentlemen, I think we've got an ideal spot. I see even with and then the rental increases every year are really they've been modified and I think they're good enough that we can live with them. There's nothing exorbitant about the rental increases. I think it's a nice building. I think we're going to get good use out of it. But I would like to see if, in fact, as time goes on, are we locked into that 3-year lease, or is it a 1 year with our option?
We do have the ability to exit it. We did want to secure the use of it for that. And as I mentioned, we're hoping to be able to evaluate this, as you may be implying, Commissioner, to make sure it's still the best fit. And there may be a day when we don't need it anymore. This is mostly to make sure we have the extra capacity and we can finally get these pods out of the Verkulen parking lot.
So we are locked in for 3 years, or are we at 1 year options?
We are locked in for 3 years. Item number 50 in the lease agreement, because it had to come before our board. We put in that if you guys did not approve it, that was our out, because obviously it exceeded $35,000, so we had to come before the board.
Right, I saw that. No, I saw that. Okay, I think you've answered all my questions, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. That's all I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Song, please.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Romano, are you a realtor? You asked a lot of great questions and many
50 years, Commissioner Song, 50 years.
I had a feeling. Great looking out for everyone. I have 2 questions, Ernest. Has this lease been signed already?
We signed initial lease to secure the property, but we have not signed the 3-year contract.
Okay.
What we did was we said we can sign it, but we can't sign anything long-term until the board approves it.
Okay, I was wondering is it because it was under $35,000 and that's why you didn't bring it to us until now?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and then my second question is what type of items will be stored here? Can you be specific?
Yeah, we will store a lot of our Head Start equipment. I mean, think of your general classroom equipment. We have books and supplies and crayons and backpacks. We have a range of classroom supplies, often in 2 parts. One that the teacher and teacher aides utilize for their own classrooms. The other, we build packages to deliver to families. And so we also need a space where we can take the pallets, undo the pallets, sort them into bundles, and then have a team come by and sort them into packages for the families. So it's both for our general classroom operating equipment and supplemental materials we might send out to the families.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I see no more in the queue unless someone has something. I believe we will vote now. Thank you.
That motion passes 12-0. That motion passes 12-0.
Thank you, Mike. So Ernest, we will now go to C.
Chair, the motion was for B and C.
Yeah.
So we're on to correspondence.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you, Ernest.
Thank you, Commissioners.
You again. I thought that was with family division. Yes. We have correspondence. Now we have correspondence.
Madam Chair, I move that we save and file the Area Agency on Aging 1B quarterly update and invoice.
Support Romano.
Thank you. And we have what every veteran should know newsletter. So we'll file that. Do we have a motion for that, to file that?
First, we have to vote on the last motion.
Sorry, thank you. Vote is up.
That motion passes 12-0.
In regard to the what every veteran should know, we will file that. Is there a motion to file that also?
Commissioner Saul makes the motion to file.
Support by Nard.
Thank you. We'll take a, are there any questions? We'll vote, please.
That motion passes 12-0.
We are on to new business. Does anyone have new business they would like to speak of?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hall, if I may.
Yes.
I received communication from Gary Cutler on CMH. They have 134 employees in the defined benefit system. So that was a question that was asked. Also, we received a COVID update about 20 minutes ago that says, I'm proud to share that we received word late last week that the Macomb County Health Department was #1 in the state for COVID vaccination provided by local health department. I think that's quite a tribute to the county, to our citizenry, and all the compliments we have received on what's taking place. So congratulations to all involved. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much for bringing that up. I think our numbers are still good and lowering, the last numbers that I've seen.
Madam Chair, I have some new business.
Yes.
Well, this will be our last virtual meeting. That's good news for all of us. We have a new, Crystal had sent out a memo earlier this afternoon talking about procedural questions, but since she's here and we're all here together, Crystal, why don't you come and give the board a review of the memo that you sent previously?
Sure. Okay, so we are combining next week's meetings. We will have one joint meeting Thursday at 3 p.m. And we will no longer be under the City of Mount Clemens state of emergency. So that will be an in-person meeting. The Open Meetings Act does provide for a few other reasons where a commissioner could participate remotely. The first one is military duty, and the other two both are effective just through December 31st of this year, and they include a medical reason, or if you are residing in a community that's currently under a state of emergency. So I would just ask if any commissioners are choosing to participate remotely based on one of those reasons, if you could please get a hold of me so we can plan accordingly.
Thank you, Crystal. Any questions? Very good. Well, if there is, just call us and we'll get you the information right away. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you. So we don't need to come in and see anything before we get there and surprise.
We'll be ready
That's
when you
what I've
come.
been told. There's no surprises there.
No, not at all. We're ready to go.
It'd be nice to not worry about grass being cut and noise and distractions at the house that aren't going on, and you're worried about stuff at the house here and whatever. So
Exactly. Super. Thank you.
Thank you. It was nice when I beamed in here and saw Crystal's picture right in the middle of my screen. That was very nice. And then other pictures too. We are into public participation.
No, Madam Chair, I'm on the list under details.
I'm sorry, I didn't go back there. Yes, yes, Commissioner.
I just wish to once again express my desire that the county commissioners have more input into how the American Rescue funding is being spent, that we have an opportunity to offer ideas, that we have an opportunity to participate in that process before budgets come to us. This is a significant amount of money coming to this county to be spent over 3 years. And we are at the start of a budget process. And I understand that the county exec sees that as his purview to decide with his department heads how this money will be spent. And I was happy to hear that Ernest has been involved in those discussions. But I think we as representatives of the people that live in this county also should be included in the front end of those discussions to bring ideas to the table. So I'm putting that out there and hope that the chair would communicate that to the executive. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kleinfeld.
Thank you. I was going to say the same thing Chair Brown did, that this is our last meeting, and this will be the last time that I see 2 Don Browns on the screen, and I don't even know how you do it. I don't think I could do it if I tried. So this will be the last time that happens. And just for clarification, Commissioner Matuzek, are you requesting that we hold public hearings with respect to those funds? What exactly is your request? I wasn't clear. Thank you, Chair.
Well, my request would be that the county exec choose to include us because, as we all say, we're all part of a team. Not feeling very team-like of late. And if that can't be accommodated, I certainly believe that this county commission could hold a public meeting regarding this. I hear a lot of chatter from my constituents wanting to know how we're spending this money. They present me with ideas. And I think it would be more than appropriate for the county commission to hold a public meeting about this money to solicit ideas from the public about where this money should be spent.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Well, I have to agree with you, Commissioner Matuzek. I don't know if some commissioners have been privy to this. I don't know, but the chair did say that the commissioners would be part of this, and I would like to at least see what's going on and not be told at the end of it also. I think we all would. I would like to at least see what's going on, because it seems to be happening. I have to agree with you.
Well, the next Finance Committee meeting, Madam Chairwoman, the Executive Office is coming forward to talk about this whole discussion. So there'll be opportunity for us to discuss the whole process on the 15th at the Finance Committee meeting under Joe Sabatini's chairmanship. So stand by, and it's coming.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything to say? Because I don't see anybody else on the queue here. I think we are on to public participation. Is there anybody waiting for public participation, staff?
Chair, we do not show anyone waiting. Anyone on the phone, you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
I will say it again. Is there anyone in the public that wants to participate? Unmute yourself at with pushing *6. Is there anyone waiting to speak to us? Thank you very much. I think we're going to go to adjournment. Oh, hang on.
Romano moves for adjournment.
Who's seconding?
Support Wallace.
Thank you. We will vote. And then we will miss each other for a few days and see each other again.
That motion passes.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Goodbye.